world, success is measured in many ways. Regardless of your definition of success, you need one important ingredient to achieve that goal: a plan. In the next hour, Dr. Henry Migliore, an internationally recognized author, educator, organizational specialist, and motivational speaker, will take you step by step through a systematic philosophy entitled Strategic Long-Range Planning. This concept is designed to help you achieve your success by a goal-oriented planning system. In more than 30 years of experience, Dr. Migliore has been successful in applying this management philosophy in both large corporate environments and small business enterprises, universities, churches, ministries, as well as personal family life worldwide.
George Odiorn is a very interesting person. As I shared in a previous program and just want to re-emphasize today, he and Dale McConkey were in a class taught by Peter Drucker back in the mid-50s. And Peter Drucker in that particular class period talked about and used the words management by objectives. Both of these men studied under Drucker, thought about those terms, and George Odiorn wrote the first best-selling book on management by objectives that came out in 1965. I had the first opportunity to meet George in person in 1967. I was the chief industrial engineer for Continental Can's Indiana plant and had the opportunity to go study under him at the University of Michigan. It's obvious that I was in awe and looking forward to meeting this person. He had already made enough contributions that everyone knew about him and talked about him. What I found was a very dynamic, forward-thinking leader, a manager, and someone that just took great, intense interest in the people in the seminar. And I still credit Dr. Odiorn today for giving me the encouragement to write that very first article on how to use MBO at the blue-collar level. And he really helped me edit that so that it now became chapter 5 in that blue-collar book. But it was from that encouragement that I really began to learn more and more about management by objectives, leadership, and all those other kinds of things that help us succeed on the job. The whole idea of commitment today, I believe, is more important than it's ever been. What's happened in our society, if you really look back through the years and try to see from where we've come and where we are now, back in the turn of the century, people were struggling to have jobs, to make money, to get by. And they were, in effect, just trying to meet their lower-level needs. Need to pay your rent, pay your bills, and do those kinds of things. But right now, we've got a society, our society has never been better educated. Right now, people are interested in making contributions. They're learning more, they're higher educated. So we as managers have got to come up with a way to help people meet these higher level needs, and that's where these commitments are going to come from. If you will, think with me and let's think about one hand being the organization's objectives and needs, which would be profit, survival, and paying your taxes and things like that, and think of the other hand as being an individual's needs. Think about those things of recognition, the opportunity to work independently, the opportunity to satisfy these higher level needs. Now just sit there and put your hands together and squeeze them. And what is the sensation that you get? Your sensation is just like mine. What you feel is a great strength. Organizational needs coming together with an individual needs. Great strength. Now what happens if you take and put your hands together like this, and anyone in that room viewing this program with you today can break your hands apart. If the people's needs are not met, then the organization is not going to get this kind of strength. So we as management need to work on this whole area of commitment, and the way to get people committed is find a way to manage that people can feel good about themselves. Every day when you go to work, go in and make someone feel good about themselves. Continually emphasize this whole area of accountability. When they do a good job, let them know. All the keys of management by objectives are going to help people be more committed. Once you achieve that commitment, then you're going to have a more stable workforce, and your workforce is going to want to work harder, and produce more on the job. A strategic plan for your life. So far we've emphasized strategic planning on the job. Now we're going to talk about strategic planning for your life. What I've done is taken all the principles that I've learned over the last 20 years working for major corporations, for oil companies, railroads, construction companies, businesses of all kinds, and taken those very same principles and developed a workbook, developed an outline for you to follow that'll help you develop a strategic plan for your life. Now, let's take a look. What does the Lord want us to do? Let's take a look at a couple of scriptures and try to see what these scriptures have to say. The first one we'll look at will be 1 Corinthians 14:33. Let me read that to you. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. God is telling us to take the confusion out of our lives. How many of us out there today are just struggling, and almost our goal is just to get by? Every day, life just becomes let's get by today, and then we'll worry about tomorrow. The Lord is coming in and telling us, let's get rid of the confusion and find peace. How do we find peace? Let's go through the outline that I'm going to share with you today, and let's develop a strategic plan for your life. Take a look at Ephesians 5:15. When I read Ephesians 5:15, it looks to me like it's saying, let's accomplish something and use our time. So the Lord is coming back and beseeching us and saying, let's have a plan, but let's also be accountable and use our time wisely. And that's what we're trying to do in this whole area of strategic planning for your life, is to try to make the most of the time that the Lord has given us. Now, it'll be very important throughout this particular series for you to have a pad of paper, to have a pen, and to make good notes. What we want to do is start from step one, and it'll take a few sessions, but we're going to finally get down to the point of developing direction. Now, these early steps are what I call the foundation steps. We've got to develop some foundations so that we can really understand ourselves, know ourselves better, analyze our own strengths and weaknesses, and then be able to say, here's where I ought to go. So what do we do in step one? Think about how you would describe yourself to someone you've never seen. Just take anywhere you've been today. Just take a look at a random person out there, and let's just say by chance, if you had the opportunity to go describe yourself to them, be thinking about how you'd make that description. After the program, you'll have more time, and I suggest to you that you just write out a paragraph. What would you say to that person as you're on an airline flight, the person next to you? And many times, I've been in that situation, someone will say, well, who are you, or what do you do? Think about that answer. How would you describe yourself to someone you've never seen? Now, as you're thinking about that, come back, and here's a point to think about today. Would your friends, would your wife, your husband, your children describe you the same way? That's interesting. If I'm on a flight, I'm describing myself to someone else, but now is that a true description? If my best friend was there, or my wife was there, and she said, well, Henry Migliore, well, tell me about Henry Migliore, would my wife write out the same paragraph or make the same description? Now, why is this important as a foundation? It's important because of this reason. If what you have said is basically what you think your friends would have said, then I think you're operating in a reality that you understand yourself and that you're not trying to be something that you're really not. And that's very important. Now, if you think your friends would describe you differently, then what that's telling you about yourself is that you're doing some role playing. The real you is not coming out. Now again, nothing about this strategic planning for your life is going to say that one is better than the other, but what we're trying to do is we want to understand ourselves better. Only if you understand yourself better are we going to be able to help you really establish direction. So each one of these steps are really meant for you to understand yourself better, and both of these things are going to help you be able to do that. Okay, after you finish that, then think about this point. List 3 people who've had the greatest influence on your life. Just sit there as you're thinking now, take a look back through your life, and write on that pad of paper in front of you, just write out the names of 3 people that have had the greatest influence on your life. Now, what I've noticed through the years, and I've been doing these strategic planning seminars for your life for quite a number of years now, the results that I've had on surveys show that about 90% of the people will list one of their parents, one or both of their parents. The other people that are listed are people like coaches, teachers, educators, and pastors. These are the people that are generally listed. Now, I think there's a couple of key points right here, and let's think about this just a little bit. If you listed one of your parents as having the greatest influence on your life, and you have children, then that should trigger this thought in your mind. Do you realize that right now, as you sit right in front of your television, that your children, years from now, if they happen to be developing a plan for their life, they're going to list the same thing? Now, what does this tell us? This tells us that the Lord has given you the responsibility of bringing those youngsters up, and that you're having a tremendous influence on their life. So we've got to really understand where we fit in the picture with our families. And you have a great influence in your family, and that's got to be part of this whole strategic planning process. Another thing to think about is take those same 3 names and think about what was the major influence from each person. Now, as you sit back and analyze this, you're really thinking about that person, and you're going to try to ask yourself and say to yourself, what did they do to influence my life? Now, again, as you're doing this, this is helping you understand yourself better. These foundation steps, we're going to go to a lot of trouble to build this foundation. I want you to know yourself like you've never known yourself before. We're going to develop a realistic 5-year strategic plan. We're going to set some direction. We're going to say, hey, there's where I can be in 5 years. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We've got to methodically think through each one of these steps so that we know who we are, how other people view us, the people that have influenced our lives, and some of those major influences. Now, obviously, my parents were on my list as I've developed plans in my life. A major influence from my parents was just the old-fashioned honesty and integrity. I grew up working in a Western auto store, and one thing I learned from my dad was to get your bills paid every month. Now, that's carried through with me the rest of my life. That helps anybody that knows me knows that I'm going to be conservative, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself or get into debt. I'm going to pay my bills every month. Other people that are on my own particular list are just a long string of athletic coaches, and I just can't go in and name each one of them, but every one of those coaches helped me develop as a person, and helped me learn to sacrifice, helped me learn the self-discipline of training, that an athlete has got to have a target. An athlete's got to have a goal and have a willingness to sacrifice to achieve that goal. So a great influence on me now is again, both of these areas. What I learned from my parents about honesty and integrity and running a business, what I learned from coaches in terms of sacrifice, the excitement of team play, of working to achieve a goal. Now, all of these things, as I fill out my own personal plan, following my planning outline, and we want you to have a copy, all of these things help me understand myself better.
In today's world, success is measured in many ways. Regardless of your definition of success, you need one important ingredient to achieve that goal: a plan. In the next hour, Dr. Henry Migliore, an internationally recognized author, educator, organizational specialist, and motivational speaker, will take you step by step through a systematic philosophy entitled Strategic Long-Range Planning. This concept is designed to help you achieve your success by a goal-oriented planning system. In more than 30 years of experience, Dr. Migliore has been successful in applying this management philosophy in both large corporate environments and small business enterprises, universities, churches, ministries, as well as personal family life worldwide. And now, Dr. Henry Migliore.
Now remember, we're working on the foundation for the strategic plan for your life. We're taking things a step at a time. We want to get a good, solid foundation so we know ourselves better, we understand ourselves better, we are trying to really dig deep into our spirit to say, this is the real me. Once we've discovered that real me in a few sessions, then we're going to take a look out into that 5th-year horizon and say, where can I be in 5 years? With the Lord's help, what can I become? What does the Lord want me to become? We're going to establish strategic direction in your life. Now remember, for these learning sessions to make the most, to mean the most to you, you need to have a pad of paper or a pencil. If you'd like to write in and get a copy of the strategic plan for your life outline, we'll share with you later how to get that copy. Now remember, in our first session, we asked you to think about how you describe yourself to someone else, how someone knows you would describe you. We talked about people that influence your life and what those influences are. What we're trying to do is help you get to know yourself better. Now today, again, it's part of it that I enjoy the most is because I've got hobbies and things that I like to do. But just take out your sheet of paper and list your favorite activities and hobbies. Just make a list. Just run right down a list. What are some of the things you like to do? For me, I'm going to list fishing and hunting and canoeing, the outdoors and rafting, things like that. As I list these, it helps me see what the kinds of things that I really enjoy doing. And you need to do the same thing. Just make a list of these hobbies and activities that you like to do. Now the next thing is sit back and ponder for a little bit. Let's just take the last 30 days. Begin to think and visualize in your own mind. List 3 things that made you feel good this month. Now again, what we're doing is we're building a foundation. Right now you're saying, well, what's that got to do with my strategic direction? Why list your hobbies? Well, you're going to see how each of these pieces fit together. We're really putting a puzzle together. Think about your face as being the puzzle. And we're taking little parts that seems like they don't really fit together, but we're putting each part in place. And before long, we're going to have a whole puzzle put together. And you know what we're going to see? We're going to see you, your bright, shiny, smiling face, and we're going to see you and where you can be if you'll follow the principles that we're talking about. So again, write out 3 things that made you feel good this month. Now, what do these 2 exercises mean to us? Number 1, as we've listed those things that we've enjoyed to do, that gives us a hint about a second profession. We seem to be entering a phase in America where it's just very hard to get by on your original profession, no matter what you are, lawyer, dentist, governmental worker, computer operator, whatever you do. It seems like we need just a little more to get by. And if you're always wondering, well, what else could I do to make a little extra spending money, take a look at those activities and hobbies. I have a friend right there in Oklahoma that loves to hunt, loves to fish. And as a hobby, he started carving out wood decoys. This was something that he enjoyed doing through the years. Before long, someone said, well, gosh, I'd like one of those for Christmas. The wife came in and got a decoy for him. Before long, more and more people are asking for those decoys. I was talking with him the other day. He's got so many orders coming in for Christmas that he'd almost have to quit his job to make all those decoys. And he's making a little money on the side so that his life can be a little bit better. And you know, that guy loves to make those decoys. Take a look at the things that you're doing and see if someone wouldn't like to benefit from whatever that hobby is or something you enjoy doing. In my case, I love to go to Canada fishing. I go every year. One of my dreams, and as I put my own personal plan together, one of my dreams of course, I guess in my case I'll never really retire, but one of my dreams is to take large groups of people up to Canada fishing, to share with them the joy that I have up there. I've been 9 years in a row, and I'll just keep on going, but this is a hobby. It's a way that I can look to the future, and instead of retiring from something, I might retire to something, and who knows how that might fit together. So take a look at what you like to do and see if that can't translate into a second income. See if that can't translate itself into something that you might do after you retire. Now let's take a look at the things that made you feel good this month. And here, I'm going to be a little tough on you perhaps, but stay with me. Let's just say that you listed 3 things that related to your job and work. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I'm asking you the question, friend, today. If you listed 3 things on the job, let's just say you're a systems analyst, you work with computers, and the 3 things that really made you feel good this month is you debugged a program, or perhaps you worked out a new kind of program, some new innovation, or solved a problem that nobody else could solve. Now that's fine. You've achieved on the job. I'm sure your boss is happy with you. But think about this. I'm going to ask you the question. I'm going to go right to the heart of the issue. Is there balance in your life? Now, I'm not necessarily saying something's wrong, but if you listed all 3 that were work-oriented, then I'm asking you to take a look at your family, take a look at those around you, and something should have happened that was family-oriented this last month. What I'd like to see in this area is that you might list 1 from work. I'd like to see you list 1 that maybe has something to do with your family, and maybe something that has to do with recreation. Now, one of the things we have to be careful about, many of us turn into workaholics. And I know I've got to struggle with that a lot myself. Sometimes my schedule gets so difficult, and it's so hard as I travel around the country working with people, giving seminars and doing things, that if I'm not careful, I'll wear myself down. Again, not necessarily saying that a round of golf or tennis or fishing with a friend or something like that, that it has to be on there or there's something wrong with you, but I'm just saying look at that very critically. Now, by the same token, if you've got 3 or 4 items that all list fishing and fun, then I'm going to ask you another hard question. Maybe you ought to get on the stick and put a little bit more into your life at work. So again, when you talk about the things that are making you feel good, what we're doing is looking for balance. You can judge your own list, but take a look at that list, and we always tend to continue doing the things that we like to do. Think about how you might respond to this question next month or the month after that. Now, the next thing that I'd like for you to do before our next session is sit down after the program's over and just write out a 1-paragraph description of the purpose of your life. You know, why does the Lord need you here? What are you uniquely called to? Do you know that each one of us has a purpose and mission for our life? But we need to start writing that out. We need to get a picture of what that purpose and mission statement is. Now, this is going to be a very difficult process. I challenge you to get a